So as you can hear, this little GE that I've just picked up is managing to pull in WCBS tonight at about, I don't know, it must be around 11 o'clock here in Toronto. We'll do a look inside of this radio in just a bit, but that's not too bad for a pocket radio with a little short antenna. And just to show that other good quality pocket radios can pick these booming stations up. Here's one of the later Panasonic Mr. Slim type radios. Mr. Thin, I mean, type radios. This is, I'll just read it off the back, the RF 032D. That's a pretty good performer as these little things go. Anyway, we'll have a look inside this one. Alright, so here we have the GE. The model number is number 72506B. This radio is in absolutely pristine shape. There's not a scratch on it, essentially. Interestingly, when you reach over here, it came with a battery in it, which had a little bit of surface charge. It says best before 2009. I don't know if that'll come into focus here or not. Maybe. Anyway, I don't know what they used to put on the best before dates for batteries. 10 years? I like to imagine someone bought a battery for this in 1999 and they decided that the old pocket radio should have a new battery for the year 2000 fears that were going on at the time. But I don't know. I have another one which looks like it's about a 15-year date, so who knows. So let's have a quick look inside this, as there's not going to be a whole lot to see, I don't think. I will say I have put a new battery in it, so I have looked inside because no tools are required. This is a traditional pocket radio style construction where the battery goes right in and the circuit board is right in front of you. Let me get something to point here, and we can talk a little bit about this. So the first is to have a look, and I will zoom in just a little bit. Let's see. You know, this is so nice I'm putting it on a towel as opposed to risking the solder blobs and whatnot that are on this cutting mat doing damage. This is a 4-digit date code. You can see the model number 72506B. Is that the same as on the bottom? Yes, it is. It felt different for a moment there. No factory code. Printed in Hong Kong, and it does say made in Hong Kong on the outside. It's very cleverly uses the antenna as a hinge, which I think is pretty ingenious, although I know GE has used this kind of design for a very long time. So my understanding is that the 8 here, so this would be the week in the year, and so the 8 represents the last digit of the year in which it was manufactured. And the 4, I think, represents the day, with Monday being 1. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So this was made on a Friday. Oh, sorry, Thursday. So 8. So is this 78 or is this 88? Well, let's look at the radio and see if we can make a guess. And I will say I'm leaning towards 78, but we'll see. So first, this does have an IC. I'll turn it over so you can maybe see the number on that. It says TFK GE, so it's got a GE branding on it, but TFK seems to stand for Telefunken, so it's not a GE designed part. T900BIK, this seems to have been fairly used in a lot of radios at that time. If I had to guess this radio, at first I'd have guessed right around 1980, which is the guess that's on the Radio Museum website as well. The design, I mean, it's Hong Kong construction, but it's not too bad. It looks pretty good from this side of the board. No one's been in here. These screws have not been removed. There's no scratching around the washers on there. No one's been in here, apart from to change the battery. Label's still there. I mean, it's like perfect. There's a little dust on there. Big deal, right? It's perfect. You can see I was pulling that New York City station in here in Toronto, so 550 miles or something like that, with this little tiny ferrite antenna. So there's the chip, and I also see, I think, 2 transistors at this end, but it looks like the chip is providing the speaker drive, although I've got to say I can't quite see. It's hidden underneath the board. Exactly where it's coming in. There are only 4 electrolytic capacitors in it, which I guess isn't that unusual for a radio of this type. They don't have a whole lot. Everything else is ceramic discs. So I don't know, maybe the first stage, maybe the RF amp for the FM is one of these discrete transistors. That would be my guess. I wasn't able to, at least quickly, find a schematic for this. Speaker is 4 ohm. The mask on the board is all hand done, so it says this says 72506. 72506. Revision, is that 7 or 0.7? Hard to know. And all hand labeled on. So I would say it's a pretty nice, I would say 1978. I don't think this kind of design was lingering that far into the 80s. I had a Panasonic, can't remember the model number. It's one you see occasionally. I think that was all discrete. I don't know. But you know, that was from the early 80s, and by that point most of the radios had moved away from the exposed circuit board when you changed the batteries, and they mostly moved away from 9-volt batteries to power them, although this does help make this one nice and loud, I think. And that would have been a sort of mid-80s radio, powered by a couple of AA's. And that went at some point, which is a shame. So I wish I could remember the model number. It's not a totally undesirable radio these days. But yeah. So I would put this about the same era as the other GE I have. So, which I would say is right around 1980. I think this is right around 1980, but if I've then got to read that as something, I would say it's 1978. Again, it's essentially a radio on a chip, which was certainly the design intention of that, and with just some supporting traditional radio bits and pieces of, fairly decent quality, it seems, given it's held up for all these years. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this look inside a really quite interesting and pristine GE radio. Quite like this one. I will say it does play very loud for a small radio. It has very little bass response, and they've definitely exchanged sound quality for volume in its design, and I think that's probably a reasonable choice, given that that I'm sure the aim was let's produce a radio that people are mostly going to use to listen to sports with. Let's make it good and loud so they can hear it over, backyard noise and that sort of thing. I like to think someone bought this as their emergency battery-powered radio, and it sat in a drawer since 1978. Anyway, thanks a lot. Have a good evening.